Hello, hello. You all are not going to believe this. You're not going to believe what I did. So I sent out the wrong, bear with me.
Oh,
Hello, everyone.
no worries.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the Business Plugs Mixer. Hi, my name is Linda Murray Bullitt. They call me the Business Plug. And tonight I'm getting ready to have business topics for business people, but also for that lady, that person that was trying to make a change and finding struggling. Tonight you're going to love the show. The show is going to be great. Go ahead and share it off, share it to other people. Tell your friends, tell your family. It's on. This is the Business Plugs Mixer. Before I introduce my powerful guest, I want to remind you that I'm helping women and minority businesses become certified. I want to see you get access to government grants and contracts so you can have sustainable income in order to expand your business. And so getting that done, there's a video out there. If you go to LSMB Business Solutions page where you're watching this, find that video because I tell you exactly how to do it. Like I tell you the steps in that video. But if you should need some support, I'm here for that too. All you have to do is DM me and we can get started. So, with that being said and done, my accountant and all my business people are going to be happy that I did what I was supposed to do. Now we can get to the business at hand. Tonight, I want to welcome my guest who's going to tell us about the power of small changes. Hey, Lynn.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for saying yes for coming. So, Lynn, tell my audience about you. Who is Lynn Hanger?
Oh, so I'm a Ayurvedic life mastery coach. I help women with holistic health on all levels. So my big tagline is I help people rebuild themselves from the inside out. And so
Mm.
Ayurveda is the science of life. So we look at all aspects of life. So whether it's a physical thing, a mental or emotional thing, that deeper feeling of spirituality and feeling connected. And we take into account that all of those factors can help either build us up towards life enhancing things and health, or slowly we can be brought into a state of disease. So my main thing is to help educate women. I provide a lot of resources. I do hands-on work. I do coaching with women. And it really is all about meeting someone where they're at. Just like in
Mm.
business, we know it's a process to build a business, to sustain a business. It's not just a one and done. Ayurveda is that same way, where we look at all of the factors, whether internal or external, and how we use that to optimize ourselves.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And so, how did you get started in this work?
Mhm. My journey started because of my health. I had a
Mm.
lot of medical mysteries. I experienced a lot of trauma, and so it was slowly me trying to figure out my own health, me trying to seek help from practitioners. I was always kind of slanted towards the natural medicine.
Mm.
So I did go see all the Western people. I did go see a bunch of other holistic people. I slowly just was breaking down. My physical body was breaking down. Career wise, I was stuck where I was at. I wasn't able to move forward. And my teacher was the first person who really validated for me that my physical problems could be a result of all the trauma I experienced and all the
Mm.
heartbreak I'd had. And so it was part of process of rebuilding me physically, but then also addressing all the other aspects, addressing trauma, learning new skills, learning how to be at peace with my emotions. And so now, I mean, it's not like you're ever totally healed, but now that I'm healthy and well, that's kind of what I do, is to try to share this with other people. We all know we should be doing, we should be exercising, we should be eating veggies, we should be doing certain things, but that doesn't mean we're doing it. So my teacher not only bridged Ayurveda with giving me the knowledge of what to do, but the habit evolution is a piece of learning how we change behavior, how we slowly make change, because it's hard, especially when we're accustomed to doing something for so many years, or if it's almost a defense mechanism or a coping mechanism. Sometimes you just make choices because that's what you have available. So slowly learning to, and it's a process. Like you said, it's the one change at a time. It's like you can't change everything overnight. So it's just breaking it down small enough so that you can have success with the little steps along the way, and then get yourself pointed in the right trajectory so that, you keep building that momentum.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because most people, after you've been in trauma for so long, it becomes your norm.
Right.
And so you don't really even know you're in trauma. When you talk about you were going through trauma yourself, um, what did that feel like on like how did you know it's time for me to do something different? Because again, you can get accustomed to the trauma, right? You can get accustomed to that. So how did you come to know, okay, it's time to make a change?
Yeah. What's so interesting, I love your question. For my undergrad with my degree, it's all was trauma study and body-based things. And so on some level, I thought because I know about trauma, I was immune to the effects of what it does to the brain or what it does to your
Mm.
nervous system or what it does to your gut. I just thought, well, I know these things, and somehow that was going to protect me. And just a big piece of it was being a parent and recognizing the patterns that I learned that were familiar weren't really serving me. And the situation I had with my daughter's father really brought to light areas that I needed to heal. And so just knowing I couldn't be the mom I wanted to be until I faced some of this stuff. Because if it was just up to me, I'd just push it down and keep going.
Yeah.
That's kind of my personality. I'm just smile. I'm okay. I'm okay. What do
No,
you need?
yeah.
What do you need? And it got to the point where my physical health got so bad, I couldn't keep going.
Mm.
And then it was just slowly knowing I physically couldn't push through it anymore. And then just knowing I had to make changes in myself. If I wanted better for myself, if I wanted to model for my daughter, what does a healthy relationship look like? What does confidence look like and not arrogance? What does setting boundaries mean? So whether it was in that aspect or even just in food, can we cook healthy, fresh food? I was raised by a single dad. So his standard, he did great with what he had. And I appreciate
Absolutely.
that. But I'm trying to, cook fresh food instead
Yeah.
of hamburger helper or canned food, which is fine. That's what we
Yeah.
had. We're fine. But Ayurveda teaches we want life enhancing things. So if we have
Mm.
something that's fresh, it has more prana, more life force in it versus something that's been processed. And so my own journey of my health breaking down forced me to, and having that validation from a teacher to say, it's not just your mind over matter. This has impacted you and your body showing physiological signs of you're not
Mm.
okay. You have to address those things. And so
Absolutely.
it was a process.
I'm sure. And so some of my listeners are probably listening to this, and some they're going to be at different stages, right? Because you have people who are in it and they know it doesn't feel right, but they're getting along by getting along, right? They're going along to get along. And then you have others who they know that I'm tired of being tired, right?
Yeah.
And then you have these other people who've been in it so long who's on the, well, I'm okay. I'm okay. I deserve this. Like I put me here.
Yeah.
They've come into the acceptance of it. And so for each of those, how their next steps are going to look different.
Right.
Yeah. And so let's talk about that. Let's talk about the person who is just starting out and they know, they've had a traumatic experience, be it a death, a loss, or trauma, relationship, whatever. How do they get to you?
I think, like you mentioned, everyone has a different reason that makes them start. The big piece with Ayurveda, what we can offer, we help you reestablish that healthy baseline of what safety feels like in the system.
Mm.
And kind of giving a context of trauma in the nervous system. When something happens that kind of shakes up your norm, we can go to fight, flight, or freeze. And then they're now recognizing fawn as a state of kind of like people pleasing.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on your different constitution of the elements that you came in with, depending on your environment, you might choose any of those different things. So the person who's going to fight, they're the ones who they're going to overwork. They're the ones who are going to push it down, and I'm just going to go for my goal and go, 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 go till they burn out. Someone
Mm.
who's in a freeze state, they're going to shut down, right? They're not going to move forward. Everything's going to stop. Fight, flight, freeze. So the flight people, they're going to want to be moving around, task to task to task, busy, 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 so everybody has a different way of living, and then whatever's going to stop their norm, right? That's
Mm.
how I work with a lot of people with chronic pain. So it builds in their system. People who have, they can't sleep anymore. Their digestive system is upset. So whatever way to express is, when you're in a state of stress, your body can't do its normal function. So you might not feel it the first year. You might not feel it the first 5 years. I had PTSD for 14 years.
Wow.
And it's like, I know something's wrong. I knew all the holistic stuff, but my Western doctor wasn't connecting my heart problem with trauma. They didn't recognize that, right? So all the different pieces. So whatever physiological thing that's going to stop them, or mental emotional thing, everybody's going to have a different thing. So when they come to Ayurveda, our whole goal is to get that baseline so that we can remember what safe feels like. So we can remember what calm feels like. If you've been stressed out, if you've had whatever, whether it's stress, illness, trauma, whatever it is that's going on in your life, you probably don't feel good. Probably not sleeping. You probably have tightness in your system. You're probably irritable. You might have anxiety. There's all these classic things that happen. And so whatever is someone's thing why they can't go on, they usually probably try what's in their insurance system, whatever Medicaid or whatever their insurance can cover. And then after that doesn't work, they start to look for alternative people. And our whole goal is to meet someone where they're at, and then slowly start helping them feel better. Do we need to work with your gut first? Do we need to work with just calming your nervous system? Maybe you're so fried, you can't take in any new information to learn how to get better. That idea of you have to kind of unlearn before you learn. And so everyone has a different starting point. And that's the beauty of Ayurveda. We have patterns that we can look at to figure out what's going on, but everybody's an individual. So they say Ayurveda is an art as much as it's a science. We can know the right thing to do, but we're humans. We rebel. We don't always want to do the right thing. We want the ice cream or the chocolate, or we want to stay up later.
Absolutely. Want our cake and eat it too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that, because I was having a conversation a few weeks ago with a young man who was in therapy, and he said, I feel like I'm giving them therapy instead. I feel like, he said, they're asking me questions, and I feel like I'm being therapeutic for them more so than them for me. And so we talked about him getting somebody else to help him. But you shouldn't be therapists having a therapy session with the therapist on their time. I mean, your time. But yeah, so but just thinking about how in our society, you hear all these different stories about people who are doing or having some type of some mentally unhealthy episode, right? And they're like, people are like, well, they act fine, or he was a quiet person, or she was always to herself, or and then they see whatever this breakthrough blowout is, and they're like, that's not the person I know. Like, the whole goal is not to get there, right?
Right.
The whole goal is while you are able to control yourself. I was reading, and it said it's better to respond than to react.
Love that.
And a lot of us are reacting in those instances. Most people are reacting to some stimuli that tells them to do whatever they were doing. And so trying to understand when you need help, like, we're so sometimes the Western us getting help for our mental conditions seems to be taboo, right?
Right.
And
But
it shouldn't be.
think about, I have this conversation with my auntie all the time. In her generation, so she's in her 70s, if you were mental, there was a truck that came to pick people up and put you in a white suit, and you were locked up. So as much as we get it now, mental health, she tries to remind me, with her mom was a single mom raising 6 kids, had no money. My grandpa left him, but he was just come back from World War II. So then it's not just my growing up, it's my mom's, and then her mom. So it's a cycle.
Yes.
And if we look at where we're at in society, there were no self-help books back then. You were a woman just stuck in a situation, or you were a man stuck in a situation just with all this pressure of whatever society said you had to be in these roles. And so we're at a new point in history where we recognize this thing called trauma. After World War II, it was just the beginning of this idea of shell shock trauma, that something, you're not right after you're in a traumatic situation. So it's been an evolution. I think now in our society, we recognize what's wrong with us in America. We have more money, we have more convenience, we have all these things, but we're not able to be authentic. We're masking. We can't show up to our job and say, I'm not right. There's no support in terms of our systems. We're putting all this support, or we're putting all this pressure on doctors or even the law enforcement. We're expecting them to show up. They're not trained as psychologists. How many DV calls do they go on where they're trying to be the therapist? It's not their role. And we don't have enough systemized stuff to help teach kids this. There was a study that they did, and this was years ago. I forget what school. It was like an inner city school. And instead of detention, they started teaching meditation to these kids. They started feeding these kids. And it's like, what a concept. If a kid has a full belly, they can regulate their breath and their emotions and just have a space when they're upset to just reset, re-regulate. They didn't act out as much. They didn't need detention. They didn't need that punishment. So I think slowly we're starting to see each generation is taking that healing and saying, hey, that's not right. And saying, okay, what can I do? And then I'm sure, I'm going to give my kids some sort of hang up, but I'm trying to, as best as I can, to not repeat what I had. My mom did the best she could, so we're chaining, we're all links in the chain to where
absolutely
we can all.
Once we know better, we do better, right?
Right.
And absolutely. So there's no like, because mine are 50, 40, and 35, my boys. And so, Lord, I think about all the things, bless the hearts. The fact that they got to see grown is a whole God thing by itself. but you think about, the trauma, because like you were saying, like, it's not just my trauma, it's all the trauma of the ancestors that I bring. And so unhealed trauma, unaddressed trauma that we are encountering. And when you know a thing is a thing, then you can work with it. Like if you know that, okay, this is not normal behavior. And yes, you've been through some traumatic situations. And so let's talk about how to cope with those and create coping skills, as opposed to, no, sweep it under the rug and pass it on to the next generation and the next generation. And then we never get out of it, right?
Right.
So just calling a thing, like I love that Ayana says that. And then once we know that the thing is a thing, let's talk about how we can mitigate its impact.
Right. And I think slowly, just like in my journey, we're being called to rise to the occasion. What are we going to do? Our babies are having drills, shooter drills. What are we doing as humanity that's a normal thing? What are we doing when we look at gun violence and the stats of all the stuff going on? Like, why do people get that crazy? Where it's like, if they can't get their basic needs met. And the kind of the coolest thing I love about Ayurveda, some of these things that we do to get into balance and to stay into balance, it's normal, natural things. But here in the westernized world, our value systems have shifted to instead of life affirming things, to whether it's you have to work to survive, right? I'm a single mom. You have to work, right?
Yeah.
But there's an idea of our natural urges. Sleep when you need to sleep. Go to the bathroom when you need to go to the bathroom. Eat when you need to eat. And as you're going on a healing journey and you recognize, wait, I'm never eating when I need to eat because I'm on the clock, or I'm doing this for this person, or I'm not really going to the bathroom when I need to go to the bathroom, or sleeping when I need to sleep. So natural things that humans, living beings, should just be able to do, we can't do. If an animal gets hurt or sick, what do? They go lie down for a little bit, take a rest, and then they come back. We are self-healing mechanisms. We should be able to do that too. But if you're on 24/7, what are you going to do? Rent's due. You have to pay. I mean, especially right now, you're paying $2,000 of rent for a 1-bedroom apartment in the hood. So you're working hard to pay, and you have to. So the standards of living and what we're up against now, I think it's a reshifting of our values of what's really important. And it's hard to look at that stuff. So taking the time to look at the things and do the healing and feel the feelings, build your support team, takes effort to do.
I know. And when you learn from other cultures, like if you're open to learning from other cultures, you learn. I sat on the bus. I went to Chicago and I sat on the bus with a lady that was from Greece. And she talked about, you Americans work too much. You work too much. She said you'll pull your 40 and then you'll do another 10 on top of the 40. And she was saying that, in other countries, they take breaks during the day. They take holidays, shut down and spend time with their families. She said, you all don't spend a lot of time with your families. She says, like you don't like your families.
Right. Yeah.
Because we're always working. We're always on, as you say. We're always trying to make a dollar. And I don't like that in our culture, it's all about money. You talk about things you have to do. You have to do that. You have to do the work because you have to pay your bills, because you can't buy a house for $2,000 a month, but you can show rent an apartment for one.
Right.
I mean, for the same amount. And that's crazy.
Right.
That is crazy. And so our whole focus on the profit. Is it profitable? Like we chase dollars all our lives and then we run out of life.
Right.
And that's, I just, I listen to my global people. Like I spent time in Africa and I noticed how content they were doing things together. Like even though they were an extended family, but they like ate together, they relaxed together, they talked, they spent time, cooked together, everything was done together.
Yeah.
And I thought, how wonderful it is to have those generations doing things together.
Yeah. Yeah. We're supposed to be together. And I think this, and I guess when you look into Western psychology, I'm not a psychologist, so I can't diagnose, but there's this idea of anti-socialism.
Yeah.
But if you're in a society where you can never be you and you're never accepted, you're talking about you're trying to help minorities and women in business. Like, well, if you're fighting in a system where you're never really seen, then do you keep fighting a battle you're never going to win? Or do you just say, whatever, I'm going to, like all the movies, all the cartoons, I watch all the cartoons with my kids. That's how they all go bad, right? Is they missed out some love or back to trauma again or unmet needs. And so if we can learn how to reconnect as a family, as a unit, some of these things that are considered natural and normal, it's not anymore. And so we have to take the effort to sit down with our family, sit down and cook a meal. I mean, here in America, it's this convenience culture that if it's not in 2 seconds, then it's not good enough, where it's like real relationships take time. Healing takes time.
Building nobody has time though.
Time, right. But what do we have it for? We're rushing to get to nowhere, and then we get there, we don't feel good. It's like, what are we doing here?
No, it's funny to me how we will accept trauma anywhere, and we'll accept missteps and the wrong things and all this. But when it comes to relationships, no, because if it's a bad relationship, if I have to work at the relationship as much as I have to work at a job, I don't want the relationship. I'd rather just cut them off. And that we're in a cutoff society. I hear other people talk about cancel culture, and I listen to people when they say, well, that's my family, but I'm cutting them off. And we're cutting off families everywhere, right? And with that, we're cutting off limbs of the tree. Like I just reconnected with a limb of my family tree that had been gone and not spoken of in 100 years.
Wow.
Like nobody knew it existed. It had been that long. And I went back and looked at it, and it's on the census report from 1920 that these people exist. But I was like, okay, that's my dad's first cousin. Whose child is that? Turns out he had an aunt. It was her child. And I got to meet the grandchild of that child. Aww. And so I was able to put the family back together. But I mean, put, that limb of the tree back together. But to look at how we cut people off, how we have no patience for one another, not understanding that everybody has their own set of trauma. Everybody's dealing with something, and you never know the backstory. Like if you know the backstory, I have a person that acts out a lot, and people are like, oh, they just, cut her off. But then when I took the time to talk to her, I learned that she was about 9 or 10 years old. And when her mother passed, she was in a reformatory. And when they learned that her mother passed, she acted out, and they put her in the crawl space of a building.
That's horrible.
Until she calmed down. They put her with food and a blanket under a crawl space.
Yeah.
And she was traumatized, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And now she's an adult and still having, issues, but nobody stops and say, what happened to you?
Yeah.
And a lot of people are operating out of those childhood traumas.
Yeah. They say there's an idea that our conscious mind and subconscious mind, that there's different scientists who argue the different percentages, but I've heard anywhere from only 5 to 1% of who we actually are is the conscious mind, and the rest
Mm,
of us is the subconscious mind, meaning those patterns, what's familiar. Is
mm,
it me? Was it my family? Was it the society? So we learn by doing, we learn by modeling, monkey see, monkey do.
absolutely.
So if you never got that modeling, if you never had someone show you a way to do it, you don't have it. And I think that's with my daughter. I'm like, whatever happens in the world, like if I can teach you these self-soothing, restorative type things to do, is just, this is just like you brush your teeth. You do some of
Mhm.
these practices, just like we do normal things. This should be a part of our normal life.
Yeah.
So we don't go on those paths. We don't hurt ourselves in relationships. We don't hurt
Mhm.
ourselves with toxins or drugs or alcohol or all the things that humans do to numb ourselves.
Mm.
So like we said, it's like power of these little things where it's like, okay, like you said, recognize it. All right, it's not how I want to be. And recognize, even just like we said on our interview, just being that one domino that holds up. So
Exactly.
you're not passing it on. That's work.
Yeah.
It's work to just stay balanced in today's society. So it's, whatever, like they say, it's like take your bucket, fill up whatever water you can, go nourish what you can, but you always got to go back to get more water. So whatever
Absolutely.
that is for you, figuring out what's going to nourish you, what's going to make you feel okay, so you can show up, whether it's your kids or your job or whatever you're trying to do with your life, you can be full. Because right now I think we're all running off fumes, and
Yeah.
no wonder why we're having so many problems. So
Exactly. Exactly. And I think that's it. I think we have been so, well, let my life be hell and then I'll take a vacation from it. But what about creating a life we don't need a vacation from?
exactly,
And we have the power to do that.
exactly,
We talk about small changes. It's something small, something, I'm not going to respond anymore. I mean, I'm not going to react anymore. I'm going to respond. I'm going to stop reacting and start thinking about my response
yeah,
and how can I turn a negative into a positive.
exactly, exactly.
And so thinking, slowing it down and not being caught up in the moment, because in the moment we act like we've always acted.
Right.
Right? So actually being thoughtful and mindful of who we are and the power of choice, the power we have in making those small choices that builds the life that we create
Right.
instead of the life we feel like we're forced into or thrown into, or it is what it is.
Right. There's a quote in the Habit Evolution where say we build our life by building our day.
Yeah.
So the small little things we do, how you wake up in the morning. Do you just go on social media right away and doom scroll? Or do you wake up and take a minute to say, gratitude or say prayers?
Mm.
Do you take a moment to nourish your body in some way? Or do you just rush off to work and care about other people? Or how are you ending your night? Are you ending and letting the world be the world and creating your little cocoon with your family, yourself, or whatever spiritual practice you have? It's taking control of these little tiny moments that we have. Because now I look back and it's like, okay, I didn't build my life overnight, but it's slowly one body-based practice at a time. One moment of, okay, I'm going to sit with my anger, or I'm going to sit with my sadness. And if I can't do it alone, then can I call a friend? Can I call someone and reach out, even though that's not my tendency, which is why I suffered for so long, is I don't want anybody to know I'm suffering, but learning how to flex that muscle and say, I do need help.
Yeah. I
And
need
it's
help.
hard to be vulnerable. It's really hard to be
Oh,
vulnerable,
that
but
part.
knowing little bit by little bit, I can look back and now I don't have to put on a mask. If
Yeah.
we were in a conversation and I needed to cry because something really triggered me, I would cry, dry my eyes, and let's get back to the interview. Whereas
Yeah.
before, I would stuff it down. Where building that authentic life is being able to honor your needs in the moment and then connect with people who that's okay. There's an idea with Brene Brown. She's amazing. So if you've never heard of her, go look her up. She did a lot of research on shame or inclusivity, where she said it's like we don't have to feel like we need to fit in,
Yeah.
because if we belong, I love you for who you are. All of
Exactly.
your little weird, quirky things, that's what makes
It's what
you
makes you
you.
you.
You
Yeah.
don't have to put on a mask. Are you going to like me if my hair is this way or my body looks this way? Or are you going to hate me if I say something stupid or mess up my words? You know, some people will, but that they're not your people, right? So intentionally
Exactly.
choosing not only your self-care, but your people, what you want to do with your time and energy. I feel like, especially here in the West, you're put into all these boxes from childhood to where giving yourself that time and space to explore what does bring you joy,
Yeah.
what does bring you meaning. Yes, you need to make a living, but that's all you're living for. No wonder why we're so depressed and dysfunctional. You know, it's like there's so much more to life. You know,
Exactly. And that's the thing is being around. It is important for you intentionally to surround your people. You surround yourself with people who give you the space to be who you are. Like a lot of times we tend to hang around with people who have an expectation of us. And I accept people where they are. And so if that's who you are, you can be authentic around me. And if it's too kooky, I'm probably gonna say something about it. But but if you tell me that's what you do, that's who you are, okay, you're good. As long as I know.
yeah,
But understand, because I'm quick. I have always been an outcast, always been a little quirky, always been different, right? And so it's not a problem for me to allow someone else to be different. So having that safe space, being around people who encourage you and who support you and who give you the space to be whoever you are, that is important. And so identifying who those people are and then making sure that you spend some time with them so that you can be who you naturally are.
right.
Yeah.
There's an idea, kind of in the yogic tradition, that when you're with a guru, so the guru is the one, guru actually is remover of darkness, you know,
Hmm.
so sometimes you get lessons by talking
Hmm.
and what I'm saying and the facts that I'm saying.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's by modeling, right? You're going to see me do something. But there's also an idea of just this energetic transmission.
Mm.
Just by being in the presence
Yeah.
gets you there. So being with people who do light up you, and especially in our world today, it's everybody thinks when, you know, everybody has whatever idea of what they think they need to do to get healthy. But when you first start breaking it down, it's like, do the things that bring you joy and see what energy that gives you. Because most of us don't even know what brings us joy anymore. Most of us don't even have time for those things. So we talk about what's the healing medicine. There's, you know, laughter is the best medicine. How many of us are laughing? How many of us have time with people like that who can bring us up? You know, so I always suggest for people, any change you want to make, you have to have people to support you. Is it a coach? Is it a mentor? Is it a friend? Is it a group? Is it a system? I mean, there's so many systems like the 12 step where it works if you work
Yeah.
it, and you have to be connected because some days you might be down and you don't want to do the thing, but I'm going to call you up. Hey, let's go to the gym. Or what's going on? Do we need to just talk and vent
Yeah.
for a minute? Do we need to work it out that way? So having people around you to build you up, whether it's the people who you're around and what's familiar, are also stretching to be around people who will get you up to that next level. Because just
Absolutely.
like it's good, it could also bring you down. And so making
Absolutely.
sure you're intentional with those things, and that can be just as much medicine as the food you eat.
Exactly. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, as we go to a close, what one thing would you like for anyone that's reviewing this interview to take away?
That's a great question. The I think the beautiful aspect of Ayurveda, which I love so much and want to share with people, is the true medicine is being who you are. And when you learn who you are and how to meet your needs, that's what our definition is of health. So for you, what you need to do is going to be different from me, is going to be different from your sister, your cousin, or whoever else. And so there's a quote by Mr. Iyengar where he says, the fundamental disease is believing something's wrong with you.
Mm.
Where I hope, you know, whether it's whatever modality that speaks to you, it's like doing the things that brings joy. Because I do think we're all encoded with what we need to do. We just stop listening to that voice for whatever reason,
Absolutely.
because we identified with somebody who didn't really see what we said.
Yeah.
So finding that space and that peace inside yourself. And then if you need help, get it. There's so
Yeah.
many resources now, online resources, free resources.
App
Look,
resources.
like you and I, how many people out here are just trying to help other people? And there's so many different phases of healing, so many different things to do. That's like, now is the time to get help. And there's so many different modalities to get help. So listening to that inner voice, knowing that is your true north. That is the goal, is to get to where you can hear your own voice and be authentic.
Thank you so very much. So if you'll hold on for a minute, my name is Linda Murray Bullard. They call me the business plug, and you just got plugged into LYNN HANGER, who is teaching us how to find our holistic life. Have a great rest of your week. I'll see you next Sunday here on the Business Plugs Mixer. Have your best week, everybody. Goodbye.
Thank you.